Welcome to the Parts of Circles Dictionary. All right, this is going to serve as a good reference tool, and you're going to want to be able to carry these definitions with you throughout this unit because we'll refer back to these words. So first, I would recommend that you press pause, right? Press pause now and copy all of the vocabulary and pictures from the screen. Press pause now. Okay, first we're going to start with the actual word circle. What is a circle? It's a collection of points that are equidistant from a given point called the center. So the circle, right, is actually this piece. That's the circle. There's inside of the circle, there's outside of the circle, there's the center of the circle, point P, and then there's on the circle itself. So this point here, 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 all these points all have something in common. The distance to the center is congruent. Okay, now speaking of that distance, we refer to that distance as the radius, right? What's a radius? It's a segment that has endpoints where? At the center of the circle and a point on the circle. So here's another radius, here's another radius, here's another radius, right? And all the radii are the same distance, right? They're the same length segment, congruent segments. Then we move on to chords. What's a chord? It's another segment, right? A portion of a line. Its endpoints are where? Both of them are on the circle. So segment JK is a chord, right? I could have another segment over here. That's another chord. I could have another segment right here. That's a chord. Where are the endpoints of that segment? They are both on the circle. So notice the difference between the radius and a chord. Radius, the endpoints, one's on the circle, one's at the center. Chords, both endpoints are on the circle. Now we move on to another set of words, but first, press pause and copy all of the vocabulary and pictures before we talk our way through it. So we start with the word diameter, and a diameter is going to be a chord, which makes a diameter a segment technically, right? And what's special about the diameter? It's a chord that passes through the center, right? So here's another diameter, right? Its endpoints are on the circle and passes through the center. Going from A to B, endpoints on the circle through the center, right? And of course, the diameter is twice the radius, or the radius is half the diameter. Right, the radius is the shorter version, diameter is the longer version. So both of the radius and the diameter touch on the center of the circle. Bringing us now away from segments and into lines. Our first line is the secant line, right? And a secant line is a line that intersects the circle in two positions, y and x, right? A line that intersects the circle in two spots. A little subsection of that secant, of course, is a chord, right? So a chord is the smaller makings of the line that contains the chord, right? A line intersects a circle in exactly two places. And now we have the tangent. We'll think about tangent, the T and tangent in that one spot where the two intersect, right? It's a line that intersects the circle at exactly just one spot. Okay, so the difference between secant and tangent is how many times it hits the circle, right? So we can have a tangent right here. And again, think about that. It just kind of touches the circle at one spot, just like the T intersects at only one spot. Now, as we discuss this idea of being tangent, this point right here is what we refer to as the point of tangency. It's a point at which the tangent line intersects the circle. So to be tangent, you have to touch the circle at one point, and that point is called the point of tangency. Okay. Next set, and you know what's coming at you, right? Press pause. Now, copy all the vocabulary and pictures, and then we'll talk our way through it. So first, we'll start with the central angle. And what is it? It's an angle, right? And where is the vertex of that angle? It's at the center. P is at the center. And then the two sides are the radii, right? Plural of radius is radii. So here's one radius here, here's one radius over here. and that gives us our central angle. The difference between a central angle and an inscribed angle is where the vertex is. The inscribed angle is an angle with a vertex on the circle, not at the center of the circle. So the sides of the angle are going to be chords, and the vertex is on the circle. So those are the two basic angles that are referred to in circles. Next, we move on to arcs. And so what's an arc? It's a portion of the edge of the circle defined by two endpoints. So over here we have arc AB, right? And we use this symbol, AB, this little arc symbol, over the top. So now we have, let's see, we have arc AB, we could have segment AB, we could have ray AB, we could have line AB. So the idea of the symbols over the top of those two letters is incredibly important. So we have this idea of, right, an arc. So maybe we have an arc CD, right? A portion of the circle defined by two endpoints. So what kind of arcs could we have? We could have a minor arc. And what's a minor arc? It's an arc that's less than 180 degrees, or essentially less than half the circle, right? So here's arc, minor arc AB. We know this is a minor arc when we look at the notation because it has two letters, okay? What happens when we go to a major arc? Well, let's keep going on with the vocabulary. All right, before we talk too much, press pause now, copy all the vocabulary and pictures, and allow me to continue to guide you through it. It's easier if you're just listening and watching and you already have everything written down rather than trying to write it and listen. That's just not going to work. Now, some of you are going to try to do that anyway, and you're going to find that your results are less than stellar. All right, now what's a major arc? If a minor arc is less than 180, then a major arc must be greater than 180. Okay, so if we said, hey, here's the half the circle, right, you'll notice that A cruises through that towards C, all the way to B, and goes through the halfway mark. No matter which way you cut this circle in half, you're going to find that that arc goes through that halfway line. As you'll notice, I put in a bunch of diameters in here, right? Or attempted to do my best to make these diameters, right? Saying this all passes through the center, and you'll notice that the arc, no matter where you put that diameter, the arc goes through one of those lines. Okay, and by the way, these would all be secant lines because they all go through the circle twice, just to add some of that prior vocabulary we talked about. Now, lastly, notice the symbolic terminology here. We have three letters with the arc over it, and so when you have three letters, A and B on the ends are the endpoints, and C is just one of the points that it goes through. If you had point G right here, it would have been okay to call it AGB. But remember, A and B must be the endpoints, the two letters on the end. Now this leads us into a semicircle. What's a semicircle? A semicircle is an arc with endpoints on a diameter, and it is exactly 180. So major arc, greater than 180. Minor arc, less than 180. And a semicircle, exactly 180, or half the circle, half the circle. So you start at J, go through point K or any point along the way, end at L. And we'll notice same three-letter piece where J and L are our endpoints and K is just one of the any points that it goes through. Lastly, just copy all of these formulas. Your area and circumference formulas should prove to be just a review. Arc length is going to be a little new. Throw those in your notes, and we're going to use those in a future assignment. So just make sure you got that in your notes. And now let's move on to that blank sheet of paper, or not blank, but the sheet that has some matching vocabulary and a diagram at the top that's pretty busy. Let's see if we can walk through a few of those examples for you. All right, we're going to use the diagram and, of course, our vocabulary to classify each circle part. And some of the parts may be used more than once, and here's our bank of words. So let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 shows us that this is a segment, right? That's segment notation. So I go look for segment WY, and here it is. And as far as segments are concerned, radius is a segment, chord is a segment, diameter is a segment. Those are the only segment options I have. Radius goes from a point on the circle to the center. Nope, not that one. A chord has endpoints on the circle. That looks pretty good. And the diameter, remember, is a chord that passes through the center. Here's the center here, so that's not that. So I guess this is a chord. Okay, moving right along, I see that number 4 is just a point. And the only thing that could really be is it could be a point of tangency, or it could be the center. I go find X, and it looks like the center, so that's what we have. Center. Next, number 6, I see that this is a line, right? So, or I should say that's line notation. And so I go up to the picture, and I'm looking for S and T. And so here's S, and here's T, and this is the line. And the only lines I know about are secant and tangent. Remember, secant touches twice, tangent touches once. How many times does this touch both circles? Just at that moment R, which, by the way, is your point of tangency. So ST looks like that is a tangent line. All right. Hopefully you're catching my drift on trying to narrow down, exactly just a handful of options of what it is, right? I don't look at this entire list every time I come to a new problem. Like for number 8, what do I notice? I notice that this is an angle. So what could it be? It could only be an inscribed angle or central angle. I've already narrowed it down to 2 answers, right? All I need to know is where's the vertex. So I look for X. X is the center. It's almost like I don't even have to look anymore. It has to be a central angle. I'm just going to double check. U is over here, Y is over here. An angle whose sides are radii and vertex is the center is automatically going to be a central angle. Right? This is just by theory of deduction, right? Just using some good old-fashioned logic, we can answer these questions. All right, moving on to maybe an odd problem. All right, let's try an odd. We get an arc notation, right? So who could that be? Minor arc, major arc, or semicircle? It's only 2 letters. Boom, without even looking, I also know that 2 letters with an arc has to be a minor arc. Has to be. Double check. Let's go find our M and our Q. Portion of a circle with endpoints on the circle. There's our minor arc. Easy. Right? We're hunters. We're just on the hunt for vocabulary. Again, number 11, it's just a single point. Must be the radius or a point of tangency. I go find R. Is it the center of the circle? Nope, it's a point on a tangent line. Must be my point of tangency. You having fun yet? This isn't so bad. It's kind of nice to know things. All right, let's see. I have a 3-lettered arc name. Oh, 3 letters has to be either a major arc or a semicircle. So let's go look up Q, R, and N in the picture. I have Q here, R we already have labeled, and N. So this starts at Q, goes through R all the way to N, and look, it has endpoints that contain the chord that passes through the center. So since this is a diameter, this must be half the circle. This is a semicircle, right? It equals 180 degrees. And in the last one, segment QR. Again, segment QR, if we're talking about segments, must be a radius, a chord, or a diameter. So I'll go up to my picture. That's a little busy. Let me erase. Okay, now that we're cleaned up a little bit, we have QR. It's a segment with endpoints on the circle, but it doesn't pass through the center, so that must be a chord. You complete the rest and then move on to video number 2 with some more arithmetic coming your way. Just remember to complete the rest of this vocabulary handout, and I would suggest checking with a partner to see if you have the same answers. Then move on to the video regarding circumference and area and some other fun stuff.